It all started on what I thought would be a quiet afternoon in my own neighborhood. I had just gotten home after a long shift when I noticed something strange. My canine partner was missing. At first, I thought he might have slipped out through the back gate, but then I saw it, a set of zip ties lying by the driveway. My heart dropped. That's when I heard the yelling. Across the street stood a woman I'd seen a few times before, the HOA board member everyone called Karen. She had my canine in her backyard, locked up like he was some kind of stray. I tried to stay calm and ask what was going on, but before I could even finish a sentence, she snapped back with a list of HOA rules and a threat to call the authorities. What she didn't know. I asterisk the authorities. That's when things took a turn. She claimed my dog was a danger to the neighborhood, said he was roaming without a leash, even though he was trained better than most humans I know. I stayed patient, but the moment she tried to zip tie me in front of my own house, that was it. But what happened next? Even I wasn't ready for it. I took a slow breath, trying to process what I was seeing. This HOA Karen had zip ties in one hand and a walkie-talkie in the other, acting like she was running a full-blown operation. She kept shouting about community safety and how my canine had terrorized her poodle, which, mind you, has never left her porch in months. The whole thing didn't make any sense. My dog had been in our fenced yard the whole morning. There's no way he could have just escaped without help. That's when a neighbor quietly walked over and handed me something, his doorbell camera footage. What I saw on that clip made my stomach turn. Karen was on my property earlier that day. She opened my gate. She lured my canine out with a piece of food. And then she walked him across the street like it was some kind of citizen's arrest. I tried not to show how angry I was getting. I asked her calmly why she took my dog. She didn't answer, just kept talking in circles about HOA guidelines and how she had the right to detain animals she thought were out of line. Meanwhile, my canine was behind her fence, pacing, stressed, confused. And the worst part, that wasn't even the most shocking part of the footage. As I stood there holding the footage, a few more neighbors started gathering around. Some looked confused, others whispered to each other, clearly unsure of what was going on. Karen, however, didn't flinch. She doubled down, saying she was just protecting the neighborhood, and accused me of neglecting my canine. The way she spoke, you'd think she believed she was some kind of vigilante. One neighbor, Mr. Davis, finally stepped up. He's lived on the block longer than anyone, quiet guy, minding his own business most days. But now he looked Karen dead in the eye and said, "You've gone too far this time." Apparently, this wasn't the first time she'd taken matters into her own hands. There were whispers about her confronting delivery drivers, reporting other neighbors for made-up violations, and even trying to get someone fined for having a garden hose in the wrong spot. But this was different. She had trespassed, taking my trained canine without permission, and then tried to physically detain me outside my own house. And all of it was caught on camera. I looked back at the footage and noticed something I hadn't before. In the background, barely visible, was a second person standing by the side of Karen's house, watching, recording, and that's when I realized she might not have been working alone. I paused the footage and zoomed in on the figure by Karen's house. It was blurry, but you could make out enough. A hoodie, phone out, standing just far enough to stay out of the spotlight. Whoever it was, they weren't just watching, they were filming, maybe even helping. Karen must have noticed me staring at the screen because she suddenly changed her tone. Her voice got louder, sharper, almost panicked. She started accusing me of tampering with evidence, claiming she was building a case for the HOA board. She said my canine was aggressive and unfit to live in a family neighborhood. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, but I had to keep it together. I've seen people try to twist stories before, but this was on another level. Meanwhile, my canine was still locked behind her fence, whining, pawing at the gate. He knew something was off. And the crowd, it was growing. More neighbors were out now, watching everything unfold. Some had their phones out, some were just stunned. A few even started sharing their own run-ins with Karen. This wasn't just about my dog anymore, it was bigger. I knew I had to act fast but smart. One wrong move, and she'd spin it in her favor. And then, out of nowhere, that figure from the footage stepped into the street. Slowly, calmly, like they were ready for all of this. The person in a hoodie stepped closer, and as they got into the light, my jaw clenched. It was one of the junior board members from the HOA, Kyle. He's barely out of college, usually just tags along during meetings, never says much. But now, here he was, standing beside Karen like this had been planned from the start. Karen gave him a quick nod, like she'd been waiting for him. He pulled out his phone and started reading something off it. What he claimed was a formal HOA complaint, already filed against me. Said there were multiple eyewitnesses who saw my K9 roaming freely, and even hinted that I might have trained him aggressively. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just Karen being Karen. This was a setup. I looked around at the neighbors again. Some seemed unsure now, like the official language was making them second-guess what they'd seen. That's what Karen was counting on: confusion, control, authority. Then Kyle said something that made the entire block go quiet. He claimed they had security footage from another house, one that showed my K9 chasing a neighborhood kid earlier that week. I knew that couldn't be true. My dog had been on duty with me the entire day that clip supposedly happened. But Karen smiled, like she had just played her best card. I didn't say a word. I just opened my phone, tapped into my department's GPS logs, and pulled up the tracker data for my K9. Every shift, every route, it was all recorded. I turned the screen toward the crowd. "Here," I said. This was the same day they claimed my dog was running loose. We were on patrol, 15 miles from here. The neighbors leaned in. Some nodded. One even laughed under their breath. Karen's smile faded. Kyle looked like he wanted to disappear. I wasn't done. I played another clip from my own dashcam. Clear audio, clear video. Me and my K9 on duty, responding to a call. Time-stamped. No way to fake it. Then, from the back of the crowd, someone else stepped forward. Mrs. Salazar, one of the more private neighbors, quietly said she had something to share. She pulled out her phone and played a clip from her security cam. It showed Karen, the morning of the incident, peeking through my gate, holding treats, calling to my dog in a high-pitched voice. The silence that followed was thick. Karen tried to speak, but the words fell apart. She looked around, searching for support. Even Kyle stepped back. Just when it seemed over, a voice called out from behind. "You still want to press charges, Sheriff?" It was my captain, stepping out of an unmarked car. He'd seen the footage, and he wasn't alone. When my captain stepped in, the mood shifted fast. Karen froze, clearly not expecting this to go beyond HOA drama. He calmly asked for the footage, collected statements, and assured the neighbors that the matter would be handled properly. No yelling, no threats, just real authority doing its job. Karen didn't say much after that. Kyle quietly walked off, pretending to take a call. As for my K9, I opened the gate and let him out. The moment he ran to my side, the whole crowd saw it. Loyal, trained, calm. Not a threat. Just a partner who'd been caught in the middle of someone else's power trip. Over the next few days, things changed around the neighborhood. Neighbors who'd never spoken to each other before were sharing stories, supporting one another. Turns out, a lot of people had been dealing with Karen's antics in silence. The HOA launched an internal review. Karen stepped down. Kyle disappeared from the board. And peace, it started to return. What did I learn? Sometimes, doing the right thing means keeping your cool, even when you're the one being tested. Because truth has a way of surfacing, especially when people stand together. And my K9 is still by my side, always watching, always ready.